I think people need to be open to the idea that it's okay to have differing opinions. Doesn't mean I don't like you. Doesn't mean I don't love you. Doesn't mean that I don't welcome you into my doors. We're allowed to have differences of opinions. Um, as long as we respect and honor each other and treat each other kindly, I think that that's a really big part of what's missing here.
Welcome to this week's Escape Your Limits podcast. And this week we are joined by a 28-year veteran of the health and fitness industry whose company specializes in helping clients reach remarkable results by improving their bottom line. In this week's episode, we discuss some of the recent media stories, including reports that the fitness industry is an evil trick by white supremacists to recruit supporters. Also, some of the challenges business leaders are now navigating when it comes to external pressures to address issues like body positivity, fat pride, and inclusion. And also, should the industry be relying on government for support, or should we be making our own path? It's a thought-provoking conversation, and one we'd love to hear your thoughts on with the Health Club doctor, Mr. Jarrod Saracco. Well, we have the doctor in the house. We've got the Health Club doctor, and we are actually in a place called Hannah House in Newport Beach. First day back after my vacation, and I'm really excited to speak to Mr. Jarrod Saracco. How you doing, Jarrod?
Good, Matthew. Thanks for having me on again, and welcome back home.
So you're also sort of traveling. Where you been?
Yeah, today coming to you live from Long Island here in the great state of New York. So just getting ready to head home myself after about 3 weeks of being on the road.
Right. Well, you've been up in Vegas, is that right?
I was in Tucson, Arizona for about a week. Then I was in Vegas for a few days, stopped home to kind of do the laundry and flip it around, and then head back to New York for a couple days. So looking forward to being home next week.
Very good. Well, I've been on vacation following the sort of, well, not so much the fitness news, but the news, and fitness has come up quite a bit. And I thought an interesting place to start. I was going to do a LinkedIn post. In fact, I did a couple of LinkedIn posts, but the LinkedIn, when you post about certain things, they do suppress the ability for it to, if you show certain pictures, you just don't get any views. It's crazy. So I thought,
you got to know that algorithm.
I don't know. It's not the algorithm because it's pretty consistent. But there's if certain things or images or subjects are posted, then they seem to purposely just suppress the ability to get anything. It's crazy. So I thought, well, I can use the podcast to talk about things that that maybe you can't talk about on LinkedIn. Hopefully YouTube allows it. But one of the interesting things that there's this lady I was reading about, a lady, I don't know if you've heard of her, Cynthia Miller Idris, and she's award-winning author, scholar of extremism and radicalization, founding director of the Polarization and Extremism Research, and she's based at the American University in Washington, D.C., where she's a professor in the School of Public Affairs, and she regularly testifies before U.S. Congress and also the United Nations on a number of different subjects. And there was an article that got picked up. It was in NSBC. It was in the Daily Mail. A number of magazines picked it up, and it caught my attention because it was kind of bad press for the fitness industry. And I don't know if you've seen it, but apparently this lady wrote about about how this home. I'll read it to you about this home fitness trend and young men going to gyms. Expands a decade of radicalization of physical mixed martial arts and combat sports. And she admits that the article was first published last year, and she said that she warned in some instances that working out is being corrupted by neo-Nazis. And there was these big articles about like gym bros and men that go to gyms and want to make themselves better and get fit. It's kind of like almost turned into this bad thing. So I was interested to see if you've picked up on that article.
No, I haven't seen it. First of all, that was a mouthful of an introduction to give her title or whatever. No, I haven't seen it yet, but I'm certainly now going to make a note of it and go home and take a look at that later for sure. But wow. Hey, everybody's entitled to their opinion, but I'd love to hear give me a talking point. What statements really caught your attention in that article?
Well, I guess that the media picks it up, and it was, from my perspective, it was almost like, well, the media is the enemy to the fitness industry, because the sound bites of this industry have been cut up and diced up, and so essentially it's kind of, by the time you sort of read some of the snippets, it's physical fitness training is almost like this thing that guys are doing, and it's almost being seen as though it's a negative thing, and that men improving themselves and going to the gym and improving their bodies and their minds isn't something that we should be supporting, and it's almost like an element of extremism. And I suppose when you getting people into gyms and doing fitness is a tough enough task as it is, and now having these media stories pick it up, and then sound bites and headlines, you can quite easily see how damage can be done by that. I suppose is my takeaway, really.
Oh, 100%. First of all, this person isn't paying attention to what's going on in our industry. More and more women, young women, are hitting the gym and hitting the weights and getting in the strength area and using power racks and doing squats and deadlifts and training hard. So obviously she's not paying attention to what's actually going on in the industry. And to your point about the media, I mean, look at what happened during COVID. You would have thought that literally somebody cooked up COVID in the back of a gym somewhere, because we became the enemy immediately. Like, we were, oh, you don't go to the gym because, that's where it's going to happen and that's where it's going to spread. And that's a big carrier place. And I mean, the way they talked about it, you would have thought that somebody in some gym somewhere actually made it happen and spread the virus, when actually the people who were working out and taking care of their bodies and doing all the things they needed to do were the ones that were surviving or recovering quicker. And so we were part of the solution, but they made us part of the problem. So media is a very interesting tool. It can be used for a lot of good. It can be used for a lot of bad. And certainly in this perspective, I mean, again, without having a whole lot of context other than what you told me, it sounds like this author is definitely missing the point of what we actually do as an industry and what people are actually trying to do as individuals by bettering themselves physically, mentally, emotionally. And the gym does all those things,
It was big. I think Elon Musk was on the conversation, and a bunch of others. It was, I think Joe Rogan mentioned about the article as well. So it seemed to have got a lot of attention, and it kind of gets me thinking about the fitness industry. I guess the commercial fitness industry, I suppose, is a relatively small part of business, really, in some respects. And it's kind of like, where's our PR? Where's our news? Because there's so many interesting and novel and headline catching things that you can put out there. And somebody writing an article about how, they attach it to neo-Nazis in some respects. So, putting a few random words together can quite quickly get headlines. But we almost sort of lack a lot of positive headlines about what it's doing. One of the things that got me thinking, certainly, about this, and in relation to younger men, when I was a teenager, one of the things that got me through many dark times was going to the gym. I can see a lot of people with having that outlet, whether it's the physical element or the mental element of being able to use it for therapy and just going in and coming out better. There's so many interesting and positive stories about doing that. There's so many benefits that come around having a purpose, which in this article was almost used as a negative thing. It's like, how do we sort of promote some of the more credible stuff without it seen as though it's very canned and made up?
Yeah. And I think sometimes when we step up as an industry, people go, oh, it's a self-serving thing, right? You're just trying to get gym memberships or personal training clients or followers. No, we need people who are educated, let's say, in the medical field, or that do these deep like Dr. John Rady at Harvard University, like the stuff that he did about the impact of exercise on the brain. At one point, he was talking about many years ago, how children at a young age, if they did 30 minutes of exercise before they went into a learning environment, he called it miracle grow for the brain, and how much more they were able to comprehend, and how their disciplinary actions, how disciplinary problems drastically decreased because of the effect that exercise had. When you look at the way people flip stories, and again, I think media's job is, if they want to say that it's self-serving for us to promote exercise, it's kind of self-serving for them to write some kind of topic that really gets people talking, right? Because they want readers and viewers and followers, and they want to be mentioned And we need professionals to step up and say, hey, one of the greatest things that you could do to combat the mental health crisis that we have in the world today is take care of your body, physical fitness, that exertion. And when you feel better about yourself. Now, I'm not saying that that's the only solution to those problems, but physical activity plays a huge part in the fight against, mental health issues and the crisis that we see today. And I think we need to start having other individuals outside of our own industry step up and say, hey, wait a minute, these guys are the good guys. They actually do a lot for our society. They can be a lot more beneficial, but we got to give them the space to do so. So
Mm.
it's kind of an interesting battle. Again, I think some people just want a headline and want to make the news and make a name for themselves. Some people really want to help. I don't know which side of the coin this individual's on yet, but I don't know. As an industry, we got to do a better job of educating people.
Introducing the next big thing in functional training, the Escape Barrow, a revolutionary training tool that combines a loaded farmer's carry with a sled push to develop hip, grip, and core strength. Developed in partnership with Pete Holman, inventor of the TRX Rip Trainer and Nautilus Glute Drive, the Escape Barrow can be rolled, pushed, dragged and carried. The Escape Barrow packs a punch with an impressive load capacity of 440 pounds, and with a two-stage galvanized paint covering process, it's also ideal for outdoor use. So head over to escapefitness.com/barrow. That's escapefitness.com/barrow to find out more. Enjoy the rest of this episode.
It seems everything I've come to learn from being in America, everything kind of gets politicized in some level. And one of the in some ways, one of the encouraging things I was seeing about, not to talk too much about politics, but in, this, some of the candidates now, without saying any names, are actually openly showing how fit and strong they are. And in some ways, this is being used almost like as a negative. You shouldn't be encouraging people to do that. But on some ways, when I was seeing it, it's like, okay, this is great. The leaders of the countries, or the leaders that want to be, or people who want to lead the country, are actually showing that being healthy and strong are good things for people to have. What's your thought about that?
Yeah, I mean, listen, first of all, here in the United States, we have the President's Council of Physical Fitness or something like that. So um shouldn't our leaders be physically active? Shouldn't they be, setting the example in a lot of ways, right? And again, we're not going to get into, politics and that thing, but just when you look at a leader, whether it's the leader of an organization, a company, a country, a leader's supposed to be an example. And if I want to encourage the American population to get out and do, 30 to 60-minute exercise 3 to 5 days a week, I don't think it's a bad thing if candidates are showing what they do, as long as they're doing it for the right reasons, right? They're not doing to win an election, but
Well, they
are they
obviously,
doing it?
I guess politicians being politicians are obviously doing it for the wrong reasons. However, there's got to be some.
The question is, were they doing it before they started running the office, right? Was it part of their daily life prior to, making an announcement to run a campaign? Did you see this individual in the gym 3 to 5 days a week? Where did you see him or her running out in the community or exercising or playing pickleball or whatever it is? I guess really that's the key. Was this part of their lifestyle before announcing candidacy, and they really believe in it, or are they, like you said, using it to politicize or win a campaign? So I don't know. Good question, but I do believe our leaders should set the example in a lot of different ways. And if we want the country to be more physically active, they should be too, and they should be helping us get people more physically active.
I've done posts about this and had conversations with people about this, and I kind of, I know that there seems to be a reason for pushback when you say it, and then it almost seems to be this defensive about not being inclusive and being discriminatory and pushing that kind of idea is really limiting people. And then on other ways, it's kind of like, well look, let's think about this logically. If somebody, male or female, of any shape, is looking after themselves in what, in a well-known definition, which is they're eating pretty well, they're getting some form of exercise, and they're getting good rest. And as a result, generally, if you do those things, your body reflects your lifestyle. You can't kind of disguise it, it kind of starts to show itself.
Mhm.
So it confuses me. Number one, if you're a business person, if you want to be a great leader and business person, make good decisions, then doing those things seems to be a good way of being the best you can be in terms of leading an organization or a team or whatever. And so you then take that up into leading countries or being in a position of power or influence. It's like, well, surely those are good things. And they're just, I can't help seeing that there is pushback against encouraging that on some levels. It's almost like, well, you've got to be careful because you're going to upset certain people if you push it too much. And you've been around, you've seen a lot of people. How do you feel about that? Should we be a lot more? Should we stand up and be a little bit more sort of what's the word? A little bit more sort of confident with what we're saying, and knowing that we're not going to upset people and discriminate people, or should do you have to flex and try and keep everybody happy and be inclusive if
Yeah.
that's what they're
Yeah,
saying?
touchy subject and great question. Look, I'm a Gen Xer, and so we know what they say about we're a little bit more, I don't know, tough to the bone to say, and since in regards to certain things, maybe we're not as tactful. But I do think in a lot of ways we have now become so afraid of saying the wrong thing or doing the wrong thing or not wanting to hurt an individual's feelings in any way, that it has made some softer than they need to be. I think people dance around topics because they don't want to get involved, or put into a situation where they're criticized or openly criticized or whatever. Um, I honestly think that the tougher conversations are what make people stronger, make your organization stronger. It can make this country stronger. Again, I'm not big into politics or trying to influence nations or any of that type of stuff. Um, but I do think tougher conversations make for tougher people, better organizations, and in this sense, let's say a stronger country. I think people need to be open to the idea that it's okay to have differing opinions. Doesn't mean I don't like you. Doesn't mean I don't love you. Doesn't mean that I don't welcome you into my doors. We're allowed to have differences of opinions, as long as we respect and honor each other and treat each other kindly. I think that that's a really big part of what's missing here. I think people have taken things to the point of your article to an extreme, and they're not kind when they express their thoughts and opinions. And I think if you have good conversations, honest conversations, tough conversations, and you have a mutual respect for one another, I think we can get somewhere.
Hmm. It's
And I think
sometimes
in the gym business, it's getting a little bit hairy too, because of, hey, how do we make the gyms more inclusive? How do we include you know the differences in genders and topics that people really don't want to talk about? How do we make these gyms more comfortable for everybody now, and that physical fitness experience more comfortable for uh, other individuals? I think that's a conversation that our industry needs to continue to have and develop and find ways to work through.
Hmm. And that was one of the things I was going to ask you around people and HR. Like, it must be a night having a business where you employ a lot of people, and the fitness industry must become quite difficult. It seems these things seem to, I guess, have accelerated really with the pandemic. Seems to have created a lot more of this. I see it a lot more coming across our desk. We get HR reports about law changes and how you have to be sensitive to things, and it kind of, I suppose, as you say, Gen X is, maybe we were a little bit different than some of the other generations, but it's almost like for gyms, there seem or this subject in particular, it seems as though and maybe I'm totally wrong, but there seems to be more focus on how we are different as opposed to how we are all similar. I've the personal things I do as a family with my wife and my kids. Some people will look at them and think that's very peculiar, and I'm sure there's lots of people that say that. But it's kind of like, look, even like I was back in Europe with my family, and we do things that are peculiar to my brothers and sisters. And when we stayed at my parents' house, and certain things that they do that we used to do that we don't know are peculiar to our parents. Lots of opportunities for sort of not conflict, but differences in values and things like that. But we kind of have this common theme where we all get together. And I suppose bringing lots of different people from different cultures together in gyms, you're going to get that. But it's almost like there's the conversation is about how we're all different and how we're going to, sort of pick up on all these different things, instead of saying, look, you come into this room, we're all the same people. We're all human beings. We've got a heart, we've got a pulse. It's a loving environment. Leave whatever leave your identity at the door, because when you come in here, we're all one thing. Is that a sort of is that a stupid thought, or do we
No.
need to kind of progress?
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, I truly believe that there is more that more similarities that unite us than differences that divide us. I truly believe that. It's what we choose to look at and focus on as an individual that makes the difference in where we stand on the situation. When you look at the gym culture per se, when you have a really good gym culture, it doesn't matter who you are. When you walk into that building, you feel that energy, you feel that family like atmosphere, you feel that support. You shouldn't feel, intimidated or looked at differently because of the color of your skin, or or your ethnicity, or where you're from, or what you wear, or the lifestyle that you lead. If you're in that gym and you're working hard to improve yourself, that's great. You're my brother or sister. I don't care where you're from. I take that approach in life in general anyway. I really don't care, where a person's from, what their upbringing is, the color of their skin, the race, the religion. It doesn't really matter to me. I truly believe that as human beings, there is more that unites us, and we need to focus on that. And I think our gym culture can actually set a good example for a lot of people. I mean, look at some of these gyms that have one thing that CrossFit, did amazingly well was build an unbelievable community in those boxes, right? Like if that coach said, "Hey, run out into the street in the middle of traffic together and stop a semi truck," they would have did it, and they would have did it together, and they wouldn't have cared, and they would have figured it out. Like that is community, and a lot of our facilities do that. I think that though that's a reflection of leadership and culture and core values of an organization more than anything. And again, I believe our industry has the power to, impact a lot of change in that regard. And I'll say it again: more that unites us than differences that divide us. And I think that we have to focus on that for
Mm.
sure.
Yeah, I do. In some ways, I do think as an industry that I've never really, I can't remember being to any event, whether it's like a big, huge fitness event, a group exercise, one of the big ones that I'm sure you've been to, or a lot of the trade shows that we've been around the world. I don't. Fitness people seem to be extremely resilient, extremely positive, extremely loving and caring people. It's quite a unique group, and I would have thought if anybody can kind of to do that, and I suppose change, make a big change. It's what the fitness industry, or the people in the fitness industry, are able to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, when you go to a conference or convention, or let's say you're traveling Europe, right? You find out somebody's in the fitness industry, there's an immediate connection, right? You're immediately drawn to them. Oh, what do you do? Oh, tell me about it. Do you work at a club? Are you like there's that immediate bond of brotherhood, sisterhood, and it's awesome. It doesn't matter where you go. I was at the gym at the bottom of the world in Ushuaia. It was like all the way at the bottom of South America, right before you get to Antarctica. And when they found out I was in the fitness industry and I was visiting, I mean, it was like I had been there for 40 years, and it was just real. Oh, they gave me the grand tour, and they felt it's like, wow, there's not a lot of places that you can go that or industries that have that. I'll give you a good example. I'm not going to name any names or times. This was a couple years ago. I was at a NERSA convention, and there were a couple people with me that were from outside the industry. It was their first time being there, and they were annoyed walking the trade show floor with me because I stopped every 5 steps or so because people were saying hello, we were talking to people, and they felt frustrated because they couldn't get around the trade show. They just wanted to do their own thing, and they're like, "Well, you got to talk to everybody," and they were upset. And I'm like, "That's our industry, man. That's what we do. We haven't seen each other for a while, especially coming out of COVID. That's who we are at the core of things. We're about people, and uh, it was amazing to see them coming out of different industries where that never would have happened. They would have just did like a hi, hello, and just walked by, but there was no bro hug or handshake or talk, and it really told me a lot about the industry that we're in and how much impact and influence we can have on each other and those whom we serve. And
Mm,
I still really believe that worldwide, I don't think there's a greater industry in the world than the health and fitness business. We can impact and affect more change than anybody else in a healthy way and really bring people together in a way that really strengthens a bond and unites people for a common cause, which is self improvement. What
mm.
what better industry can you be in than helping people be the best version of themselves, mentally, physically, emotionally, socially? Um, Nothing like it.
Yeah, and you like myself have been around this for 25 years, and so we've been around the world. We've been, shows across Asia and the Middle East and Africa and Europe. And you're right, there's this common thing, and I suppose it's almost like coming back to the media before I move on. But it's almost like, are we letting other people that are probably not part of that don't understand it define how we should be defining what we're doing? People are putting all these different labels on how we should be and what we should say now, and as opposed to what we used to do for 25 years, which is, look, as an industry, we figured this out. Tons communities have been developed, as you say, CrossFit and the Les Mills and the Zumbas, and we could go on and on and on of people of different shapes and sizes and races and colors and you name it, have always been able to come together and in that moment be part of a family. And it's just, should we actually be setting some of the rules here as
Yeah.
opposed to being told, okay, well, you need to do that. And I can't help thinking, well, I think actually you guys may have it wrong. The people that are saying what should be done. So who is saying this, for a start? Who's saying that we should do that? And you end up having all these issues. And I've never been in a place in a gym where I've actually seen that. I've never been in a place, and I feel like I'm well trained. I've never been in a place where I've seen a situation where this has happened, and I'm sure it does. But as you say, with the right leadership, it generally doesn't happen. And maybe we should be sort of setting our own standards in some cases, and not bowing down to things that probably are not a problem if we did things in a different way. Sorry, I
Well,
spent
I
my
hope.
holiday rant.
Yeah. Well, I hope that with Liz Clark and Ursa and their new initiatives and the reorganization there and the influence that she has in Washington D.C. and the team she's putting together and the things that our industry is starting to do, hopefully we make headway in that regard and that we have a seat at the table and we as an industry have more to say. Because you're right. I mean, people are making decisions for us, and they don't even include us in the conversation. And that's a big problem. So I hope that these new initiatives with Ursa are going to help us have more say, have more influence, and at least be at the table to have part of the conversation. And I'm looking forward
Or
to seeing
create
how
our
that
own
goes in the next
table.
one.
This is what
I
I
mean,
think.
well, so that was so I didn't want to go there, but if you want to go there, I that may have to happen. It literally may have to happen. Like at a certain point, it's like, you need to get up, change the table that you're at, and start a new conversation. And I think if we don't get anywhere here soon, I think that's the route that we're going to have to go as an industry.
Because there's only so long, it's like, whether it's a relationship or in a business, there's only so long you're like, I'm just beating a dead horse here. I really
Yep.
am. And
Yep.
the time and the money, it's like, okay, let's just do our own way. And if you want to follow what we're doing, great, come
Yep.
along. But if you want to do that, it just seems so many times that I have lots of conversations with people who are doing it. And I know there's some great stuff doing, but it's almost like these sometimes these people just don't want to listen, and they're not interested, or they're being influenced by so many other things. And it's
Okay.
like, look, let's walk our own path.
That's the influence of other things statement. Unfortunately, money talks. People are influenced by, oh, but I've got stock or an interest in XYZ company and they sell a weight loss product, or I'm in the tobacco industry or alcohol or whatever, pharmaceuticals or whatever it is. And even though they might want to side with us, their wallet or bank account or other some sort of influence, whatever it is, maybe they have a family member that's involved in something, that outside influence impacts their ability to think and stand on their own. Um, I think leaders lead, and eventually, like you said, it's time to step up and change the conversation. Hopefully, as an industry, we're able to do that.
There's definitely the pockets of like, well, I suppose when you look into business, it becomes more apparent, and look into the type of business that we're in and the size and the maximum potential of that particular category. And you look at the maximum potential of people having fitness clubs and health clubs, and then you look at the maximum potential and reach of people that own a technology company, a Facebook. Obviously, there's much greater reach. There's much bigger opportunities to generate revenue, and there's much bigger opportunities to have influence. And when you look at our small industry, you're right. The people that are selling, I'll pick an example, but the food industry and that, of clearly the alcohol industry, all of these different industries that don't necessarily help people to have a healthy life. Clearly, they're going to have a lot more influence because they've got a bigger market and they've got more people and more ability to kind of get their way in these things, which the fitness industry doesn't. And I suppose that's why it's like, okay, well, are you really going to make a difference when that's your competitor, or are you better off being innovative and trying to find a nimble way of, because there's lots of David and Goliath examples where small people that can be quick and nimble and be innovative, which I'll come on to about business, can destroy a lot of the big organizations. And so can we use innovation? Can we do things differently? Can we use the power of all these trainers and fitness people with a ton of influence, as opposed to trying to get, let's say, I'm not going to criticize government, but that as an example, to try and get them to follow what's important and what we think is important.
Rally the troops, man. Rally the troops. But yeah, I certainly didn't expect this conversation today, but it's a great topic. Listen, at the end of the day, it's frustrating when you have a solution or offer a solution that most people around the world can benefit from. Who can't benefit from physical activity? Name one person that has any chronic disease, injury, problem, physical or mental disability that can't benefit from physical activity. I don't think you can think of any. But yet we're starting to be hammered with, okay, we're going to put sales tax on memberships and we're going to make it harder. We're not going to let insurance and healthcare reimburse for fitness services. I mean, it's like we constantly fight the battle and everybody's always looking for the magic pill. Well, guess what? Fitness is as close to the magic pill as you're going to ever get. So why are we still, keeping us from taking our rightful place as a top rated like industry in the world, so to speak? And who knows, maybe one day we're going to get to that point where people listen, and I look forward to that day very much. But in the meantime, I'm going to keep doing what I do and help thousands of people live better lives, buddy.
Yeah, I agree. And certainly, and that's the thing. I obviously, I'm, as an owner of a fitness company, I'm going to be very biased about this, but I've got young kids. I've got young kids that I want to be active. I've got young kids that I want to eat. I've got young kids that I want to grow up and be great examples in life because they have those things. And I'm coming back from England just last week. We've got a health service that's just, falling to pieces because there's so many sick people. And one of the easier, simple ways of well, I say simple, I'm sure it's not simple, but one of the big differences that can happen is finding a way to spend probably less money and get people to, do some form of movement, improve their diet, improve their sort of rest and recovery, and it can make such a big difference to that whole health service. And yet the frustration is there does seem to be another industry which seems to be a lot more profitable to kind of support than a free thing which you can't pattern, like moving and eating well.
Incentivize people, tax breaks for those who are physically active, they have a gym membership. Like there used to be those programs, hey, make 120 visits a year to the gym, you get reimbursed on your fitness, your insurance, or any type. There's so many ways we can do it, and I applaud companies like MyZone that
Yeah.
are trying to do influence Congress and get them active and show them the ability of data and tracking and doing things like that for sure. So yeah, it's going to take some great minds to get together and see how we can continue to impact change. So.
Well, hopefully this conversation, it's hopefully these types of conversations, if nothing else, just get people to think. It's as an industry, we are small, and we've got a relatively quiet voice in the scheme of things. So if more of these kind of conversations can happen, it would get us to think about new ideas, and that's where I want to go next. Really, with this conversation is that I think as an industry we're very resilient. Certainly, having businesses that have been closed down and for a couple of years, and as you said previously, almost being seen as the place where these this kind of thing I won't mention was spreading like wildfire.
The
and
19
and to be able to bounce back from that and innovate almost, this sort of, come up from the ashes again and to be thriving is great. And I know a lot of people, in whether they're suppliers or operators, have certainly, really tested the best of everybody, really. And I think the people that are around here today, and hopefully will continue, are really sort of unique people and great entrepreneurs and I suppose entrepreneurs and leaders. Maybe that's the word I would say. But what things have inspired you? What because we've pre-pandemic, the industry was very similar. We had certain models and we were going on a certain trajectory, and you could kind of predict how those things were going to happen. It was stopped, and now I very much feel, after talking to you and a lot of people that there's these kind of mashups of different ideas now that are appearing. Different people are entering the space from a consumer perspective. Models that don't quite work, but they've evolved into these sort of hybrid ideas. So what are some of the things that are not just flashes in the pans and a rebound, rebound situations, but what things are you starting to see that have got staying power, that have almost like kind of emerged as a result of what has happened through to their businesses?
Yeah, well, first, before we move on, for those who are watching this, make sure you comment, because I'm interested to see the thoughts on our earlier part of our conversation, for sure. But yeah, listen, man, resiliency is probably the best word. I think that the situation we faced the last couple of years really forced, club owners and fitness pros to really reinvent themselves. And we were kind of on cruise control, right? 2019 was just a spectacular year for the fitness industry, and everybody expected 2020 to just be this booming market, and we were headed there. And then we, came crashing to a halt, and people had to sit back and reevaluate their operation and things that they probably should have been doing in the meantime, right? How do we streamline our processes? How do we get things more tighter? How do we focus more on individualized attention and things of that sort? But it really forced us to do that and get creative. It's been interesting to see how some have stuck with those adjustments, and how, in my opinion, some have reverted back to pre-pandemic operations. Just like nothing happened. Like, hey, that's over. We don't need to. We're going to go back to doing things the way we're doing. I'm still interested to see how that thought process plays out for them in the long haul. But I think there's a lot of organizations that became a lot stronger because they made these adjustments. I still think the hybrid thing is yet to be determined as far as its success rate. There's a lot of companies that invested heavily in online training and hybridization and things of that sort, as and now that the gyms are back to where they were, it's not really working. I believe Les Mills just let out a study the other day too. I don't remember the stat, but I think it was like 60% of the gym goers that they interviewed are doing workouts at home in addition to their workouts at the gym. So it's something around there. I forget exactly what the stats are, and I'm sure somebody from Les Mills can, drop that, correct me in the comment. But um, it's amazing to me how much we've bounced back because the gyms are packed right now. And I think one of the things that, and you know this because we talked about it before early on, was the focus on strength training is greater than ever before. And I think one of the things the pandemic did was people got outside. They started running, paddle boarding, pickleball, walking their dog more, taking their kids out to the park more, and cardio changed for a lot of people, especially in nice weather areas. Those in the Northeast who or wherever we still get snow and ice and cold. Yeah, a cardio session inside's a great thing. But the movement towards strength training and functional training has been unbelievable. And watching these gyms now redesign themselves to fit this new kind of mindset has been pretty wild. And I think it's going to serve us in the long run because I think more and more people are realizing the benefits of strength training and how important it really is to overall health. Mental health too. There's nothing like going in and having a session where you're throwing around weight and steel and moving stuff around, and you let all that anxiety and all that, let's say you're having a bad day, that aggression or frustration out on the weights, on the strength, you feel great at the end of it. I mean,
Hmm.
there's nothing like it.
What do you think has driven this? Because it's something I've given a lot of thought to. Certainly incorporated. I as a business owner that develop products, you have to put some sort of relatively big bets on where things are
Yeah.
going. So I've spent a lot of time thinking about it. And I know there was an initiative. I was asked to contribute to a piece in Health Club Management, which I think goes out next week. And I didn't realize it, but in the UK there was a strength initiative in 2019. I can't find the actual details now, but someone will be aware of it. But the UK government had this initiative to encourage strength training, and the question was, has that had an impact on gyms and what they're doing? And on one way, I thought, well, obviously, there's a huge difference. But was this down to as it relates to the UK specifically, was this down to a strength initiative? Was this down to some of the research now that's coming out to say that strength training is important? Although I think you and I have probably known there's been research for a long time about how that's been important. I can go back 20 years and we've been talking about it. So certain people have been waving that flag for a long time. Or is there something else? Because let's talk about one of the guys who you both know, Flex Lewis, Dragon's Lair. He's got a very unique model. In some cases, it was the type of gym that probably you and I used to be very aware of in the 80s. It's reminiscent of that type of space. And yet these gyms now have come back with a vengeance. They seem to be the place where the younger people want to go, very strength-based. But the difference between those ones and the ones of today is they could be over 50% female in them now, in some cases, doing that sort of training. So what do you see? What do you think has really driven that? And in particular, I suppose, is the sort of uptake of more females in those types of spaces?
Instagram. The peach emoji. If there was a single emoji that has changed the world, it's the peach emoji. Listen. When you think about it, before, our lives were really only visible to our circle of friends, our neighbors, our people around us, school. Now you can share your life with everybody all around the world. And it's amazing to me how much power and influence that has had, good and bad, obviously, right? But when you now see a guy like Flex Lewis working out and on social media, and Chris Bumstead, and all these guys. I mean, think about what Arnold did way back when for the fitness industry and bodybuilding. Can you imagine if there was social media back then? I mean, look at Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson now. Look at the influence that him and him training in his Iron Paradise, and the cool apparel that comes with it, and the mindset stuff that he produces. I mean, when you look at what social media has really allowed us to do in a positive way, it's created influence, right? It's created a way to go, hey, Matthew, Jarrod, uh, you want to be successful, get yourself to the gym, stay motivated. I mean, look at Bedros or Alex Hormozy or any of these guys that have that influence. And you want to be a better husband, father, man, woman, whatever. Get to the gym. It's discipline, it's concentration, it's focus. It shows all these things. And I think that has really exploded because now I can share my journey with you. Now, there's some people that do it for the wrong reasons, and I don't want to get into all that. But if I'm sharing it with the world, I'm going to be a lot more motivated. Now, yes, there's a lot of Photoshop kings and queens out there that make things, not real. Uh, but I do believe that that's led to a generation of, hey, man, the gym is cool. The gym is back. The gym is where I need to be. And I think I said this on one of your podcasts before. Friday nights at the gym or Saturday mornings at the gym are replacing Friday nights at the bar and the nightclub. More and more people are worried about getting their training session in on Saturday morning than going out on Friday night and going getting hammered and boozed up and nightclubbed out. And that's impressive that you can influence a generation of people to do that, right? Because there's a generation where we were worried for a long time. There was childhood obesity, big thing. Can't get them active, can't get them doing. Guess what? They're starting to work out now. They've grown up to be teenagers and they're going, hey, that's cool. The Rock says I need to be in the gym. Flex Lewis says I need to be in the gym. This influencer says I need to be in the gym. Great. I don't care what influences you to get there. Just get in here and get it done. And you're going to improve your health and fitness and mindset. And I think that that's really impacted people. I also think, again, the focus on clothing and self-esteem, has really been an interesting focal point. I make a joke about the peach emoji, but I gotta tell you, I mean, look at all the equipment that's come out for glute training. I mean, I created Booty Boulevard for World Gym, right? Like, there's a whole
Pretty good.
mindset to that, right? Booty Boulevard. Hey, that's trademarked, So I mean, there's a company called Booty Builder. I mean, how many companies now have exploded with a hip thrust machine or
Yeah.
some sort of glute training apparatus? You
It's
see the women in the
Brett,
school. Yeah,
Brett Contreras,
Contreras. Yeah, yeah, and I mean, I was at a gym back last fall, and it was the middle of the day, and there's 7 squat racks and platforms, and 6 of them were women.
that
Only
doesn't
one
surprise
guy.
me, to be
Yeah,
honest. Yeah.
6 of them were women. They're deadlifting, they're squatting, they're hip thrusting, they're doing all the power, they're clean and pressing. I mean, it's amazing. So I say social media, you could say tongue in cheek, but it really has had a major impact, good and bad. But on the good side, being able to see these individuals, uh, I think it's really let people know that, hey, man, I got to get to the gym. I got to work out. I got to be cool. And that's why gyms like the Dragon's Lair and all are starting to really explode because people aren't afraid of weightlifting anymore. It used to be that way, right? Back in the 70s, 80s, bodybuilding, early 90s, then it got into, oh, we can't say bodybuilding, we can't say gym, it scares people. That's when things started to change. We go back to our conversation about getting soft earlier. We can't say gym, it scares people. Nah, man, the gym is cool. The gym is back. People want to be there. And I think it's great. I think it's a great thing for our industry.
And that kind of, it's almost going beautifully full circle to the original conversation. And this is where you have to, for me, you have to kind of look between the lines. And you're right, on any spectrum, that on any subject, there's a spectrum. It's not all or nothing. It's different degrees that goes along, and you have the middle and the end. But I think I didn't expect you to answer the question in the way you did, but now you've answered it that way. I would pretty much support that. No, I pretty much support what you've said. I think there's plenty of examples of that. And so then what does that mean? Well, you've got two things. You have social media. What is social media? Well, it is media generated by individual people, just regular people. That is the media. Now, I know business now gets into it and it influences, but that's pretty much what it comes from. And That's how the algorithm works. Certainly on Facebook, it shows your friends and family and that sort of thing. And then you have regular media that kind of tells you what it wants to tell you, successfully or unsuccessfully. And so you made the point about, oh, we're told that gyms are scary and, you know, bodybuilding's intimidating and blah, 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 and women don't like to use weights and that sort of stuff, which may be right. But then I suppose you leave people to their own devices. And although this was the other post I was going to put on LinkedIn about the recent Calvin Klein advertisement where you kind of had, who was the guy who owns, what's the kind of actor that used to be the Calvin Klein model? What's his name? He's Mark Wahlberg.
Oh, okay.
Mark Wahlberg. He used to be a Calvin Klein model. Used to look great. And then there's the new Calvin Klein model.
So did I, but no,
right.
Okay, I'm just kidding.
But you've got the new Calvin Klein models that they're showing, you know, out of shape people because that's what people want to look for. And, you know, I was going to ask a question around that. But what I think about in relation to your statement is that people gravitate to what they want to gravitate to. So women, for whatever reason, maybe it's because other people and other friends, it's certainly not the media telling them what they should look like. It's social media and other people on there that look a certain way. And whether women look up to women, strong women like that, I know my wife does. She wants to be a strong woman and a leader for her daughter. Women seem to be attracted to have this certain characteristic as being, you know, strong, fit, healthy. And some of that does come down, as you said, you know, rounded glutes and almost going back from what it was in the 80s where these were stick women that was pretty much driven by the media to actually having shapes and curves and, you know, wanting to round out all those pieces. And that seems to be what women now. I can't speak for women if there's any.
I was going to say, let's be real careful where we go with this conversation.
But it seems to be that something is encouraging women now to go into gyms in a positive way, generally, to have some sort of muscular shape to them and, you know, work out their glutes. There's something that, whatever it is encouraging people to do that. There's something that encourages young males or even older males, to be honest, I'm 50, 60-year-olds, to want to go into the gym and to sort of aspire, whether they admit it or not, but there seems to be something where no one's twisting their arm to say you should look like that. They seem to want to do it. And the design of gyms nowadays, and I've been into many gyms in terms of the equipment they want to buy, seem to say, well, people are coming in and they want more of this stuff and we don't have more of this stuff. They don't want that, they want this. So whatever's happening, there's a bit of a change. And it comes down to the question, well, is it because people are forcing them to do that? Or is it because people feel that that's what they want to do?
That's a great question. I think we're at the point where it's what people want to do. Because even when you look at the gyms that still have hundreds of pieces of cardio or classes or whatever, I mean, that's great. And there's still a market for it. But more and more, you see people gravitating towards the strength areas and doing these things that they see their heroes or influencers doing. I'm not saying that everything you see on social media is right or correct or done the right way. That's a whole nother topic. But I think people are doing it because they want to. I think there's a measure of people that are working out because they have to for medical reasons or whatever, but eventually they start to see the benefit and they start to fall in love with it because they like the result of it. And so, yeah, it's a great question. I look forward to seeing it continue to play out over the coming years and see how it continues to develop for sure.
Well, it's curious. We did an event a couple of weeks ago, and I asked a question, and there was people from pretty much across the world, and everybody said the same thing. Everybody was consistent with the answer. Now, what's the chances of something influencing people around the world? You know, in all different places and all different political systems. Like, people seem to want to be strong. And it's not, and I very much doubt, as we said earlier, with the power of the fitness industry, I very much doubt if it's the fitness industry have got so much might that they're able to kind of influence the change. Because if they did have, we're in a great position because we've got a lot more power than we thought.
I also think that we've come a long way as a society. I think we still have a long way to go, but not looking at women as weak individuals at all, looking at them as strong leaders, as strong influencers, business people. I mean, they can impact change dramatically, but when you look at years and years ago, models and runway models were super skinny. Like you had to be this big, but guess what? They would register obese on a body fat test because they had skinny fat, right? It wasn't healthy looking. But now, as you look to your point about curves and muscles, and that's what's sexy. That's what's really, and it's empowering for them to feel that way, and that's great. All for it. And I think that builds self confidence. And so, as we continue to grow as a society, we can continue to see the impact that physical fitness has on us mentally, emotionally, physically. I think we're going to continue to gain traction and say, hey, we're part of the solution for all of these things. I don't care if you're 80, if you're 8 or 80, or 180, it doesn't matter, man, woman, whatever it is, whoever you are, you need to be doing this. And if you do it and you're consistent and you're disciplined, you're going to see the rewards and you're going to feel great about yourself. And it's definitely going to be an empowering thing for a lot more people as we continue to move forward.
So and I'm sort of going to try and wrap up a little bit now and bring it together a touch, but should we avoid being scared of promoting that? Because I know nowadays, and many big companies are certainly doing this, they're almost scared to, if you go out and you say, well, look, it is good to do this. It is good to aspire. And I know like body shape's a sensitive thing. And I think it's not about specific body shapes. Even at our best bodies, we're all different. So I think we have to accept that. But there's a general feel that, as you said, I like, strong woman. I want my daughter to be a strong woman. I want to
Absolutely.
I want to bring up a strong woman. And I think it's good for her for so many different reasons. I think in a lot of cases in our generation, that wasn't encouraged. And if you're not confident with yourself, you can end up in all kinds of different issues with people and relationships and situations. So I want to bring up a strong woman. Do you think because of that, though, it's like have we got to be careful of pandering too much, to being careful to upset people on a message that you truly believe is really good? Should we just get out there and just say what we think, like people are encouraged to do, and forget about and not be too worried about getting criticized that you're promoting strong people, strong women, like the article at the beginning of this conversation was,
Listen, anytime you express your opinion, you open yourself up to criticism. And if you don't want to be criticized or open up a dialogue, then you got to keep your mouth shut, unfortunately. So it's really a perspective of what kind of person or individual we are. Are we confident? Are we open to having differences of opinion and respectful conversations? If you are, then you should be one to speak up and hold your own. You shouldn't be afraid to express your thoughts and opinions and emotions and beliefs, as long as you do it in a respectful way and you're open to having tough conversations. There's a lot of people out there that like to spew hate and spew their opinion or whatever it is, but they don't like to be challenged. They don't want to have that debate back and forth. And then I think there's other people out there that all they want to do is criticize. All they want to do is throw hate. They don't want to have a dialogue. And so that's part of the issue with it, I think, and why people fear opening their mouth. People are we're gonna give you 1-star reviews, or we're gonna throw hate on social media. I mean, it is a scary thing for a business owner to express their viewpoint because of potentially, lashing back on ratings or media or keeping people away from the business. But I don't think we get anywhere by being quiet. I think
that's what I mean.
If we want to move forward, you got to have the conversation, and you got to be open to feedback, and you got to be open to doing so. Again, I say respectfully having differences of opinion and tough conversations.
But as you made a really great point there, I think that becomes a problem. You are a leader, you're heading up, you're the CEO, president of whatever, C-suite executive. I guess there's pressure to do that, isn't there? There's pressure to, I think, how do you navigate that? You've been in those positions as well yourself. How do you kind of almost have to keep those types of opinions to yourself if you want to stay employed?
Depends on what it is, right? And there's a lot of people out there. That's why you employ PR companies. They know the magic of words and how to spin it. But I think that if you can't be yourself, then you lose yourself. And I don't think anybody should lose themselves and who they are and what they believe in for the sake of a company, a paycheck, or anything of the sorts. As long as you're not spewing hate, you know, any of racist, sexist, any of those types of things, you're entitled to your opinion and you're entitled to express it, and you're entitled to have be different than everybody else is. But again, the way you do it needs to be tactful. The way you do it needs to be humble and expressive in a way that doesn't negatively impact your company or reflect. Like that's why sometimes like you see those disclaimers. Hey, the viewpoints on this program are not of so and so's, whatever. Like Matthew's going to have one here on Escape Fitness. Hey, Jarrod's viewpoints on this are totally his own. But yeah, man, I think there is a measure of the world being too sensitive in a lot of ways. But I don't think we do ourselves any good by being like that. And so I'm never one to shy away from open, honest conversation as long as at the end of it we can still shake hands and be friends and whether we have a difference of opinion or not. I'm not going to hate you for that. There's plenty of people who don't agree with me, and that's okay. I don't think anything less of them. And if I did, that shows more of a problem with me than with them. So that's how I kind of look at it.
Final question then, Jarrod. You
All right.
have been digging into a number of different businesses and keeping abreast of a lot of great stuff, which you and I talk about whenever we get chance to catch up. What are a couple of 2 or 3 things, or even one thing that really are you marinating on that you think this could be interesting? Not quite happened yet, whether it's a model, whether it's a form of marketing, whether it's changes in staff, anything within the space that you're seeing, probably a little bit underground yet, but something that you're keeping an eye on for the future.
Recruiting, I think that's a big topic. You were at Cybec when I spoke about that and some innovative things we're doing right now to attract talent in this generation. I think that's recruiting right people is a very difficult thing for a lot of industries and a lot of businesses. I know the fitness industry is no different. But we've been experimenting with clients on a couple different ways to attract and maintain great talent, which is working out really, really well. So love to see that. I also think that marketing is definitely going to change, and we may have to go back to some old school, more guerrilla type of stuff because as the privacy things take place and locations on your Apple or Android are turned off, the digital marketing things that we see today are going to go away. The way that Meta changes their ad campaigns and Google and all this. I got to be honest with you. I think we're starting to lose the personal touch, and I think those who start to go back, what's old is new again sometimes. And I think we have to go back to face-to-face interactions and doing some of the things that maybe made us successful in the late 90s, early 2000s before technology took it over. Because the original instant message was a handshake. The original instant message or whatever it was me coming up to you and introducing myself and, hey, I'm Jarrod Saracco. I work at so-and-so gym. We'd love to have you guys come over, whatever it is. I think we miss a lot of that because privacy matters. Digital is changing. I mean, I think we're going to see a change in the marketing aspect as well. And then finally, in our facilities, it's going to be real interesting to see how these boutique studios hold up. I mean, they're starting to get into that time frame where they start to disappear. We're already starting to see cracks in the armor in some of the bigger ones. How long they'll really stay around for. But guess what? Big box, medium box, they're still here since the early 60s. And it's amazing to see that, transition still occurring. I mean, look how many boutiques have come and gone. How many of them are having issues. But yet big boxes have been around a long, long time. Now, as long as your box can innovate and continue to grow and be on top of things, and I think that that's one of the things I've been fortunate enough to, be a part of is innovate some really cool stuff for the brands I've worked with and the clients I've worked with. And I think you've seen some of that stuff, so it kind of speaks for itself. But I'm going to continue to try and be at the forefront of it and be a leader in a lot of different ways, and that's one of them. So think differently. I say I work to win, and sometimes that means being ahead of the game. So that's what I'm going to try and keep doing.
Jarrod, if people are looking, tell us a little bit about what type of services that you're offering and how people can get in touch with you if you're taking on any new clients, any opportunities to work together.
Yeah, certainly appreciate that. So it is an international health and fitness business consulting firm. We work with fitness businesses of all shapes and sizes, from boutique studios to big box health clubs to international chains. We also work with vendors who are trying to maybe infiltrate the industry or work on their sales or marketing tactics, tell a great story, get their message out there as well. We've had a lot of success with smaller brands looking to penetrate different markets. And our whole focus is to help you create remarkable experiences and remarkable profits. And so to do that, if you're interested in having a conversation, whether you've got an idea for a new concept, whether you're looking to turn around a business that's struggling, feel free to reach out. Jarrod at healthclubdoctor.com. You can certainly type my name into Google, find my website, touch base with me on LinkedIn, and certainly open to have a conversation and see what we can do to help you change lives for the better.
Fantastic. Jarrod Saracco, Health Club Doctor, thank you for an interesting conversation today.
Thank you, Matthew. Yeah, it was wasn't sure where that was going, but I certainly enjoyed it, and always an honor and a pleasure to be asked to be on your podcast.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Matthew.
Thank you for listening to this episode. If you've got any value from it whatsoever, then please do us a favor, like, subscribe, tell somebody, and that will help us to be able to continue to do more of these and help you escape your own personal limits. Thanks for listening.